There's a building in Kyoto that's over 1,300 years old. It's made entirely of wood. No nails, no screws, just perfectly cut timber, fitted together with such precision that it survived earthquakes, fires, and centuries of weather. Now, less than 300 miles away in Tokyo, engineers are designing skyscrapers that can bend and sway during earthquakes, moving up to 6 feet in any direction without cracking. This is Japan, and its architecture might be the most fascinating on the planet. Think about it. Most ancient civilizations built with stone to last forever. Egypt had its pyramids. Rome had its concrete. But Japan? Japan built with wood, the most fragile material imaginable. Yet somehow, their oldest structures are still standing while entire stone cities have crumbled into dust. Here's what makes it even more remarkable. Japan is one of the most geographically hostile places to build anything. The country sits on the Ring of Fire, where 4 tectonic plates collide. Earthquakes happen almost daily. Tsunamis have wiped out entire coastlines. Typhoons batter the islands every year. And 70% of the land is mountains, meaning there's barely any flat ground to work with. So how did the Japanese not only survive these conditions, but create some of the most innovative architecture in human history? How did they go from wooden temples to earthquake-proof megacities? How did they preserve thousand-year-old traditions while building some of the most futuristic urban landscapes on Earth? The answer isn't just about construction techniques. It's about philosophy. It's about a worldview that sees impermanence, not as a weakness, but as a strength. In Japan, architecture is more than shelter. It's a discipline, a spiritual practice, and a constant conversation between humanity and nature. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to trace Japan's architectural journey from ancient forests to neon-lit streets. And you'll see how one nation managed to do what most thought impossible: honor the past while racing toward the future. To understand Japanese architecture, you have to go back to the beginning, not just to the first buildings, but to the philosophy that shaped them. In ancient Japan, before cities and castles, there was nature. Mountains were gods. Rivers were sacred. Forests held spirits. The earliest Japanese didn't see themselves as separate from the natural world, they saw themselves as part of it. And this belief became the foundation of their architecture. The oldest structures in Japan are Shinto shrines. These aren't monuments meant to dominate the landscape. They're designed to blend into it. Built from unpainted wood, with thatched roofs and simple lines, they feel less like buildings and more like extensions of the forest itself. The most famous example is Ice Grand Shrine, which has been rebuilt every 20 years for over 1,000 years. Not because it's falling apart, but because the act of rebuilding is sacred. It's a ritual, a reminder that nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. When Buddhism arrived from China and Korea around the 6th century, it brought new architectural ideas. Temples became more elaborate. Multi-story pagodas rose into the sky. But even these grander structures followed the same principle: harmony with nature. They were positioned to frame mountain views. Gardens were designed to mirror landscapes. Water, stone, and wood were arranged to create balance. What's remarkable is the construction itself. Japanese carpenters developed joinery techniques so advanced that buildings could flex and move during earthquakes instead of collapsing. Wooden beams interlocked like puzzles. No nails, no glue, just precision and understanding of how wood behaves. These weren't just builders, they were masters of their material. And the philosophy went deeper. Japanese architecture embraced impermanence. While other cultures built to last forever, Japan built knowing things would change, decay, and eventually return to nature. Buildings were meant to be lived in, maintained, and when necessary, rebuilt. This wasn't failure. It was the natural cycle. Architecture wasn't about defeating time, it was about flowing with it. By the time Japan entered its feudal era, architecture had taken on a new purpose. It wasn't just about spirituality or harmony with nature anymore. It was about power, control, defense. This was the age of the samurai. Warlords ruled over territories, and constant conflict shaped the landscape. To protect themselves and project authority, they built castles. And Japanese castles were unlike anything else in the world. Take Meiji Castle, for example. It's often called the White Heron because of its elegant, soaring roof lines. But don't let the beauty fool you. This was a fortress designed for war. The outer walls created a maze. Multiple gates forced attackers into narrow kill zones. Stone foundations elevated the castle high above the ground, making it nearly impossible to scale. Every design choice had a defensive purpose. Architecture became strategy. But castles weren't just military structures. They were symbols. The higher and more elaborate the castle, the more power the lord commanded. Inside, rooms were arranged by social hierarchy. The lord's chambers sat at the center and highest point. Retainers and guards occupied lower floors. Even the architecture enforced the social order. As castles grew, so did the towns around them. This is where Japan's early urban planning began. Castle towns were organized in rings. Samurai lived closest to the castle. Merchants and artisans occupied the middle zones. Farmers and laborers stayed on the outskirts. Streets were deliberately confusing to outsiders. Winding paths, dead ends, and hidden turns made invasion difficult. Edo, which would later become Tokyo, started as one of these castle towns. Edo Castle was the seat of the Tokugawa shogunate, and the city that grew around it became the largest in the world by the 18th century. The layout reflected strict social divisions, but it also created a complex, functioning urban system that would shape Japan's cities for centuries to come. Feudal architecture wasn't about blending in. It was about standing out, about declaring dominance over both the land and the people. And yet, even in these fortresses of power, you could still see traces of Japan's connection to nature in the gardens, in the placement of stones, in the way buildings framed distant mountain views. Power and beauty, control and harmony, all in one structure. While castles represented power, the homes where ordinary people lived told a different story. This was architecture at its most practical, most human, and in many ways, most innovative. Traditional Japanese homes were masterpieces of efficiency. Space was limited, so every square meter had to work harder. The solution was flexibility. Rooms weren't fixed. Sliding doors called shoji and fusuma could transform one large space into multiple smaller rooms or open everything up completely. There were no dedicated bedrooms or dining rooms. The same space served different purposes throughout the day. The defining element was the tatami mat. These woven straw mats weren't just flooring, they became the measurement system for entire rooms. Even today, Japanese real estate is measured in tatami mats. They created a standardized, modular approach to living space that made construction faster and more predictable. Furniture was minimal. People sat on the floor. Tables were low. Futons were rolled up and stored during the day. This wasn't about poverty, it was about intentional simplicity. Less clutter meant more space, more flexibility, more room to breathe. Climate shaped everything. Summers in Japan are hot and humid. Homes were designed for airflow. Elevated wooden floors allowed air to circulate underneath. Deep eaves provided shade. Sliding doors opened entire walls to catch breezes. Houses weren't sealed boxes, they breathed with the seasons. And then there was the concept of inside and outside. Traditional Japanese homes blurred this boundary. Gardens were visible from every room. Verandas extended living space outdoors. Nature wasn't something you went to visit, it was part of your daily life. This way of living influenced everything that came after. The minimalism we associate with modern Japanese design, it started here, in these simple wooden houses, where less was always more. For over 200 years, Japan had shut itself off from the world. But in 1859, American warships arrived in Tokyo Bay, and everything changed. Japan was forced to open its borders, and what followed was one of the most dramatic transformations in architectural history. The Meiji Restoration began in 1868. And with it came a radical mission: modernize or be colonized. Japan looked to the West and decided to learn everything it could. Suddenly, architects were studying European styles. Engineers were importing new materials. Brick, steel, glass, and concrete arrived for the first time. The results were striking. Tokyo's streets filled with Western-style buildings. Train stations mimicked European terminals. Government buildings borrowed from French and German architecture. Banks looked like they belonged in London. Japan was trying to prove it could match the West on its own terms. But here's what's fascinating: the Japanese didn't just copy, they adapted. Western forms were combined with Japanese craftsmanship. Brick buildings incorporated traditional wooden joinery techniques. Interiors mixed European furniture with tatami rooms. It wasn't pure imitation, it was synthesis. This period also saw the birth of Japan's modern cities. Railways connected the country for the first time. Factories rose in industrial zones. Western-style urban planning created new districts with wide boulevards and public squares, concepts that had never existed in traditional Japanese cities. Yet even as Japan raced to modernize, there was tension. Some saw Western architecture as progress. Others viewed it as losing Japanese identity. This debate would echo through the next century, shaping how Japan built its future while holding on to its past. By 1945, Japan lay in ruins. American firebombing had destroyed over 60% of Tokyo. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were erased by atomic bombs. Cities across the country were reduced to ash and rubble. The architectural legacy of centuries was gone in a matter of years. But what came next was extraordinary. Japan didn't just rebuild it, reimagined everything. With millions of people homeless and the economy shattered, there was no time for nostalgia. The country needed housing, infrastructure, and hope, fast. The challenge was unprecedented. Tokyo alone needed hundreds of thousands of new homes. Traditional construction methods were too slow. Materials were scarce. So architects and engineers got creative. Prefabricated housing appeared. Concrete became the primary building material because it was cheap and fast. Buildings went up in weeks instead of months. But some architects saw this devastation as an opportunity. A group called the Metabolists emerged with a radical vision. They proposed cities that could grow, change, and adapt like living organisms. Buildings wouldn't be permanent, they'd be modular, replaceable, designed for constant evolution. Towers could add new sections. Entire neighborhoods could be reconfigured. Their ideas were bold, almost utopian. Kenzo Tange designed plans for Tokyo Bay that looked like science fiction floating structures, stackable housing units, infrastructure that could expand infinitely. Most of these visions were never fully built, but the philosophy stuck. Japan began thinking about architecture differently, not as something fixed, but as something flexible, temporary, always evolving. This wasn't just about buildings, it was about survival and psychology. A nation that had lost everything couldn't afford to be sentimental about permanence. They had to embrace change, adaptability, and constant renewal. Post-war Japan rebuilt itself with a speed and innovation the world had never seen. Today, Tokyo is one of the most complex cities ever built. Over 37 million people live in the greater metropolitan area. It's the largest urban zone on Earth, and nearly all of it sits on land that wasn't meant to hold this many people. The challenges are extreme. Space is limited. Land is expensive. Earthquakes are constant. So Tokyo's architecture had to solve problems most cities never face. The result is a city unlike anywhere else, chaotic, efficient, and endlessly inventive. Skyscrapers here don't just go up, they're engineered to survive disasters. Buildings sit on shock absorbers. Massive dampers swing inside towers to counteract earthquake motion. Some structures can sway over 2 meters without cracking. Japanese engineering turned seismic activity from a threat into a design challenge they mastered. But it's not just about tall buildings. It's about using every centimeter of space. Capsule hotels stack sleeping pods like drawers. Micro apartments fit entire lives into 20 square meters. Narrow buildings squeeze into plots that would be considered unbuildable anywhere else. In Tokyo, if there's space, someone will build on it. The city operates on multiple levels. Underground malls sprawl beneath streets. Pedestrian bridges connect buildings in the air. Train stations are entire ecosystems, with shops, restaurants, and offices stacked vertically. You can live, work, eat, and shop without ever seeing the street. And then there's the aesthetic. Neon signs cover every surface. Commercial districts explode with color and light. Yet walk 10 minutes away, and you'll find quiet residential neighborhoods with wooden houses and narrow lanes. Tokyo contains extremes, tradition and technology, chaos and order, noise and silence, all packed into the same city. This isn't accidental. Tokyo never had a master plan. It grew organically, building by building, responding to needs as they arose. The result is messy, overwhelming, and somehow it works. While Tokyo represents density and pragmatism, contemporary Japanese architecture has taken a different path, one focused on simplicity, light, and space. And it's changing how the entire world thinks about design. The names are now legendary. Tadao Ando builds with raw concrete, creating spaces where light becomes architecture itself. His Church of Light has a single cross-shaped opening that transforms throughout the day. It's minimal, powerful, spiritual without decoration. Kengo Kuma works with natural materials, wood, stone, bamboo, but reimagines them for modern structures. His buildings feel organic yet contemporary. They breathe, they connect inside and outside. Traditional ideas expressed in new forms. Then there's Sana, the architectural duo, known for impossibly thin structures and transparency. Their buildings seem to float, walls disappear, boundaries blur. They've mastered making architecture feel weightless. What connects all these architects is philosophy, not style. They design for human experience, not spectacle. Spaces are meant to be felt, not just seen. Light, shadow, texture, and emptiness become as important as walls and roofs. This is architecture that invites contemplation. And the influence has spread everywhere. Minimalism in Scandinavia, simplicity in California, the emphasis on natural light in European design, they all owe something to Japan. Japanese architects proved you don't need ornamentation to create beauty. Emptiness can be more powerful than decoration. Japanese architecture also champions sustainability in ways that feel natural, not forced. Buildings use passive cooling, natural ventilation, and local materials. They're designed to age gracefully. This isn't trendy eco-design, it's centuries-old thinking applied to modern problems. Today, Japanese architects win the world's top prizes. They design museums. Japan isn't done innovating. Right now, architects and urban planners are designing the cities of tomorrow. And they're facing challenges that will define the next century. The first challenge is demographics. Japan's population is aging faster than almost any country on Earth. By 2050, nearly 40% of Japanese people will be over 65. Cities need to adapt. Buildings must accommodate mobility issues. Public spaces need to be accessible. Urban design is becoming healthcare design. Technology is part of the answer. Smart cities are being tested across Japan. Sensors monitor traffic, energy use, and air quality in real time. Buildings communicate with transportation systems. AI optimizes everything from heating to waste management. Fujisawa Sustainable Smart Town, built near Tokyo, runs almost entirely on renewable energy and manages resources through integrated networks. But technology alone isn't enough. Japan is also rethinking density. The future isn't about building bigger, it's about building smarter. Compact, walkable neighborhoods where everything you need is within 15 minutes. Multi-generational housing that keeps families and communities connected. Architecture designed for human interaction, not isolation. Sustainability has become essential. Japan imports most of its resources, so efficiency matters. New buildings use timber from managed forests. Architects are reviving traditional techniques, natural ventilation, passive solar design, materials that regulate temperature naturally. The future is looking to the past for solutions. Disaster resilience remains critical. Engineers are designing structures that can withstand not just earthquakes, but rising sea levels, extreme heat, and typhoons made worse by climate change. Japan's architecture has always been about survival. Now it's about surviving what's coming. The vision is clear: cities that adapt, buildings that respond, communities that endure. Japan is building a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around. From wooden temples that have stood for over 1,000 years to skyscrapers that can dance with earthquakes. From feudal castles to capsule hotels. From post-war ruins to sustainable smart cities. Japan's architectural journey is one of the most remarkable in human history. What makes it extraordinary isn't just the buildings themselves, it's the philosophy behind them. While most civilizations tried to build for eternity, Japan built knowing that nothing lasts forever. And paradoxically, that acceptance of impermanence made their architecture more resilient, more adaptable, more human. Every era brought new challenges: geography that seemed impossible to build on, wars that destroyed entire cities, natural disasters that would have broken other nations. But each time, Japanese architects didn't just rebuild, they innovated. They turned constraints into creativity. Limitations became opportunities. The principles established centuries ago in wooden temples still echo in modern design. Harmony with nature, respect for materials, flexibility over permanence, simplicity as sophistication. These aren't just aesthetic choices, they're a way of thinking about how humans should inhabit space. Today, Japan influences global architecture in ways that go far beyond style. The minimalism, the attention to light, the emphasis on experience over spectacle. These ideas are reshaping cities from Stockholm to Sao Paulo. Japanese architects aren't just building for Japan anymore, they're building for the world. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: architecture is never finished. Japanese cities are constantly evolving, rebuilding, adapting. Buildings come and go, but the values that shape them endure. In Japan, architecture isn't about leaving a permanent mark on the landscape. It's about creating spaces that serve the living, respond to change, and honor both past and future. From the sound of a temple bell in Kyoto to the electric hum of Tokyo at midnight, Japan's architecture tells a single, continuous story. One of resilience, innovation, and the endless conversation between tradition and progress.